Forget everything you thought you knew about Autobot heroism. The narrative you've been sold, noble warriors fighting tyranny, protectors who never compromise their principles, good guys who always choose the moral high road, is incomplete. At best, propaganda. At worst. What if Optimus Prime's good guys weren't always so clear-cut? What if winning a war that lasted millions of years required Autobots to make choices that would horrify the very humans they claim to protect? Today, we're examining 4 Autobots whose moral complexity was hidden beneath heroic branding warriors who did what was necessary regardless of whether it was right. The matrix of morality. The Transformers universe has always presented itself in stark moral binaries. Autobots represent freedom. Decepticons represent tyranny. Autobots protect innocent life. Decepticons destroy it. Autobots value truth and honor. Decepticons embrace deception and cruelty. This simplistic framing served its purpose. Selling toys to children required clear heroes and villains, uncomplicated narratives, where good triumphs and evil is vanquished. But 4 million years of civil war cannot be fought with clean hands. Wars of that magnitude, that duration, that existential intensity don't preserve moral purity. They corrode it, slowly transforming idealists into pragmatists, heroes into soldiers who do what survival demands regardless of philosophical cost. The Autobots we're examining today understood this reality. They made choices that other Autobots refused to make, operated in moral gray zones that Optimus Prime's speeches never acknowledged, and carried burdens that heroic narratives conveniently forgot. These aren't villains who infiltrated Autobot ranks. These are genuine Autobots, loyal to the cause, committed to defeating Decepticons, believing sincerely that their actions serve the greater good. But their methods, their choices, their willingness to cross lines that others wouldn't, these place them in uncomfortable territory where heroism and atrocity blur into something neither, something both, something that defies easy categorization. Understanding these characters requires abandoning comfortable assumptions about Autobot virtue. It demands recognizing that in protracted conflict, the side that wins is often not the most moral, but the most willing to do what the moral refused to consider. These 4 Autobots weren't celebrated because what they did was necessary, but shameful victories achieved through means that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. Sacrifices that official histories erased, compromises that undermined the very ideals they claimed to fight for. Prowl. The tactician who weaponized morality, the strategist's burden. Prowl was never meant to be likable. Where other Autobots inspired through charisma or compassion, Prowl led through cold calculation, a tactical processor so advanced he could compute battle outcomes with near-perfect accuracy, predicting Decepticon movements, optimizing Autobot deployments, transforming warfare into mathematical exercise, where emotions were variables to be eliminated. His role as Autobot strategist placed him in position where moral compromises weren't occasional necessities, but daily requirements. Every battle plan involved calculated losses, acceptable casualties, strategic sacrifices, decisions about which Autobots would be placed in situations where death was probable. Prowl made these calculations without hesitation, without visible remorse, because someone had to, and emotional attachment would only compromise accuracy. But Prowl's moral ambiguity extended far beyond cold tactical assessment. In IDW's Transformers comics, the continuity that explored his character most deeply, Prowl didn't merely accept that war required dirty work. He embraced it, creating Black Ops teams, sanctioning assassinations, engineering false flag operations designed to turn Decepticon factions against each other. He became architect of Autobot intelligence apparatus that operated without oversight, answerable only to him, executing missions that Optimus Prime never officially authorized, because official authorization would require acknowledging they happened. The Wreckers, and worse. Prowl's greatest moral crime, or greatest strategic asset, depending on perspective, was the Wreckers. This elite Autobot unit specialized in missions too dangerous, too brutal, or too morally compromising for regular forces. They weren't heroes. They were weapons, deployed when situations demanded overwhelming violence rather than tactical finesse. But the Wreckers were public-facing compared to Prowl's deeper operations. He maintained networks of informants, some willing, others coerced through blackmail or threat. He authorized torture of Decepticon prisoners when intelligence extraction required it, justifying this as preventing future Autobot casualties. He manipulated other Autobots, including Optimus Prime, by withholding information, presenting incomplete intelligence designed to produce desired decisions rather than informed ones. The Combaticons represent Prowl's most controversial creation. In IDW continuity, Prowl didn't just command these warriors, he helped create them, forcibly combining Decepticon prisoners into Gestalt warrior through process that violated every ethical principle Autobots claimed to uphold. The resulting combiner, Devastator, or Bruticus in some versions, was weapon of mass destruction that Prowl unleashed. When conventional tactics failed, accepting collateral damage that other commanders would have deemed unacceptable. Necessary evil, or evil necessity. Prowl would argue, and did argue, repeatedly, that his methods saved lives. Every assassination prevented future battles. Every coerced informant provided intelligence that protected Autobot operations. Every moral compromise was calculated risk, with positive expected value, when measured in Autobot survival rates. He wasn't sadist who enjoyed cruelty. He was pragmatist who recognized that losing with principles intact was still losing. But this logic contains its own corruption. Once you accept that ends justify means, that preventing future harm justifies present atrocity, that winning matters more than how you win. Where does limitation come from? Prowl's trajectory across IDW comics showed the answer. It doesn't. He became progressively more willing to cross lines, his calculations expanding to justify increasingly extreme measures, until the difference between his methods and Decepticon brutality became nearly indistinguishable. The tragedy, or perhaps the point, is that Prowl was effective. Autobot victory owed significant debt to his ruthless efficiency, his willingness to make decisions that preserved Optimus Prime's moral authority, by keeping him ignorant of methods used in his name. Prowl didn't undermine Autobot ideals. He protected them by absorbing their contradiction into himself, becoming the darkness that allowed others to remain light. Prowl didn't compromise Autobot morality. He weaponized it, proving that the cleanest hands often belong to those who hired the dirtiest. Character 2 Ultra Magnus, the lawman who broke his own rules, the burden of command. Ultra Magnus represented everything Autobot leadership should be. Honorable, principled, committed to regulations and proper conduct. He was soldier's soldier, commander who led by example, warrior whose integrity was unquestionable. His adherence to rules and protocols wasn't rigid bureaucracy, but genuine belief that law separated civilization from chaos, that maintaining discipline during war was how you prevented war from transforming you into the enemy you fought. This made his moral compromises more devastating than Prowl's calculated cruelty. When Prowl crossed lines, it was expected his character allowed for it, almost required it. When Ultra Magnus compromised his principles, it represented something breaking, the sound of foundations cracking under weight they were never designed to bear. Command, decisions in the gray. Ultra Magnus's morally gray moments often involve the Wreckers, Prowl's Black Ops unit that Magnus sometimes commanded, despite his discomfort with their methods. Leading the Wreckers forced Magnus into situations where regulations didn't apply, where survival required tactics that military code prohibited, where being good soldier meant becoming questionable leader. In these missions, Magnus made choices that haunted him, authorizing execution of Decepticon prisoners who knew too much to be allowed to escape or be rescued, abandoning Autobot soldiers in enemy territory when extraction would compromise larger mission objectives, using Autobot casualties as bait to draw Decepticons into traps, treating fallen comrades' bodies as tactical assets rather than beings deserving of dignified recovery. The Tyrist Accord represents Magnus's most significant moral compromise. As chief enforcer of Autobot law, Magnus discovered that legal frameworks established to govern wartime conduct had been systematically violated, not just by rogues like Prowl, but throughout Autobot command. Structure. He faced choice. Expose these violations and potentially destabilize Autobot leadership during critical phase of the war, or maintain silence and become complicit in the very illegality he was sworn to prevent. He chose silence, rationalizing that preserving command structure served greater good, that revealing the truth would cause more harm than concealing it. The price of principles. What makes Ultra Magnus's moral ambiguity compelling is his awareness of it. Unlike Prowl, who rationalized his actions as tactical necessity, Magnus knew he was compromising principles he claimed to uphold. This knowledge didn't stop him. Duty demanded the compromises, but it ensured he paid psychological price that Prowl's emotional detachment spared him. Magnus's internal conflict represented broader Autobot dilemma. How do you fight protracted war against enemy willing to use any tactic without eventually adopting those same tactics? How do you maintain moral superiority when moral purity means tactical disadvantage? Magnus tried to walk this line, to remain honorable soldier while making dishonorable choices, and the contradiction nearly broke him. His eventual breakdown and reconstruction, literally he was revealed to be Minimus Ambus, inside Ultra Magnus armor, symbolized this psychological fracture. The persona of Ultra Magnus Perfect Soldier, incorruptible commander, couldn't contain the accumulated guilt of compromises made in that persona's name. The armor became prison, the reputation became burden, and the honorable warrior discovered that honor in warfare is performance that requires constant betrayal of the principles it supposedly embodies. Ultra Magnus enforced Autobot law while breaking every principle it stood for proof that the most rigid standards bend first under pressure. Character 3, Optimus Prime, the icon who authorized atrocities. The uncomfortable truth. Yes, Optimus Prime, the symbol of Autobot virtue, the paragon who preaches freedom and protection of innocent life, the leader whose moral clarity supposedly defines the faction. Including him on this list feels like sacrilege, like attacking the foundation of everything Transformers represents. But that discomfort is precisely the point. If even Optimus Prime operates in moral gray zones, then the entire concept of Autobot moral superiority collapses into uncomfortable reality. Optimus Prime's public persona, the speeches about freedom being the right of all sentient beings, the unwavering commitment to protecting life, the willingness to sacrifice himself rather than compromise principles, is real, but incomplete. It's the face he presents to troops, who need to believe their cause is just, to humans who need to trust their protector, to himself when doubt threatens to overwhelm him. But behind that face exists Commander who has led war for 4 million years, and no one leads that long without blood on their hands. The Shadow Decisions. Optimus Prime authorized Prowl's Black Ops operations. He had to know that his chief strategist was running assassination programs, torture facilities, psychological warfare campaigns that violated every principle Optimus publicly championed. He maintained plausible deniability through deliberate ignorance, never explicitly authorizing these programs but never investigating reports of their existence, creating space where Prowl could operate without official sanction but with tacit approval. 18. In the IDW comics, Optimus's moral complexity reaches its fullest exploration. He makes command decisions that prioritize strategic victory over individual lives. Abandoning Autobot colonies that couldn't be defended, accepting massive civilian casualties as unavoidable collateral damage, even sacrificing teams of his own soldiers when their survival would compromise larger objectives. These aren't portrayed as moments of weakness, but as requirements of command, the prices that leaders pay in currency of other people's lives. The Bayverse films presented even darker. Optimus, a warrior who executed defeated enemies without trial, who literally tore opponents apart while declaring, "I'll kill you," with savage fury, who demonstrated that millions of years of war had transformed the Philosopher King into something harder, more brutal, more willing to embrace violence as first resort, rather than last. This wasn't character assassination. It was honest portrayal of what sustained warfare does even to the noblest souls. Optimus Prime's greatest moral compromise might be the war itself. Multiple continuities present opportunities where peace could have been achieved. Moments when Megatron offered genuine negotiation. Situations where third parties proposed mediation. Circumstances where continuing to fight served no purpose beyond pride and revenge. Optimus rejected these opportunities, rationalizing that Megatron couldn't be trusted, that Decepticon ideology was irredeemable, that only total victory would bring lasting peace. But this logic ensured the war continued, that millions more would die, that Cybertron itself would be destroyed. How many lives could have been saved by accepting imperfect peace rather than pursuing perfect victory? How many civilians died because Optimus chose to continue fighting rather than compromise? These questions have no comfortable answers, which is why they're rarely asked. The weight of the Matrix. What separates Optimus from Prowl, or even Ultra Magnus, is consciousness of his compromises. Optimus knows he's failing his own ideals. Every difficult decision, every strategic sacrifice, every moment. When he chooses victory over virtue, these accumulate as psychological weight that no amount of leadership wisdom can lighten. The matrix of leadership amplifies this burden, connecting him to every Prime who faced similar choices, showing him the pattern. Leaders who start pure become commanders, who make pragmatic compromises, become old warriors who realize they've become what they fought against. His periodic breakdowns across continuities. Moments when the weight becomes unbearable, and Optimus considers abandoning leadership, relinquishing the Matrix, walking away from a war that has transformed him into killer, disguised as hero, reveal the psychological cost. But he always returns, always accepts the burden again, because someone has to lead, and abandoning leadership would mean abandoning everyone who depends on him. This is Optimus Prime's moral grayness. Not that he's secretly villain, or that his principles are false, but that maintaining those principles as public face, while authorizing their violation in practice, requires him to live as contradiction. He is simultaneously the most principled Autobot, and the one most responsible for principles being compromised. He preaches freedom while running authoritarian command structure. He values life while sending soldiers to die. He opposes tyranny while exercising absolute authority. The contradictions don't make him hypocrite, they make him leader, because leadership in wartime requires embodying contradictions that would shatter anyone who examined them too closely. Optimus Prime isn't morally gray. Despite being the greatest Autobot, he's morally gray because he's the greatest Autobot. Heroes don't lead wars for 4 million years with clean hands. Character 4, Didnt, the Decepticon who never quite became an Autobot. Born in darkness. Didnt's origin story is unusual among Autobots. He wasn't born into heroism or gradually converted to the cause through philosophical awakening. He was Deadlock Decepticon, assassin, killer without remorse, warrior who embraced cruelty as both tactic and identity. His transformation into Autobot Didnt wasn't redemption arc so much as identity reconstruction. Attempt to bury past self under new persona, built from meditation, swordsmanship, and Eastern philosophy aesthetics. But the past doesn't bury, it infiltrates. Didnt's methods, his instincts, his approach to problems, these remained fundamentally Decepticon, even after he wore Autobot insignia. He was wolf in sheep's clothing. Except the wolf was trying desperately to become sheep and discovering that changing costume doesn't change nature. This made him perhaps the most authentically morally gray Autobot. Not someone who compromised principles, but someone whose principles were always questionable, whose very presence among Autobots represented acceptance of moral ambiguity. The assassin in Autobot colors, Didnt's value to Autobots was precisely his Decepticon background. When situations required someone willing to kill efficiently, silently, without hesitation, Didnt was deployed. When missions demanded infiltration into Decepticon operations by someone who understood their psychology intimately, Didnt volunteered. When problems needed solving through methods that other Autobots found distasteful, Didnt became solution. His philosophical journey, embracing Crystal City mysticism, studying ancient Cybertronian martial arts, cultivating persona of enlightened warrior monk, was partly genuine spiritual seeking and partly performance designed to distance himself from Deadlock identity. But in practice, Didnt used this philosophy to rationalize violence that his new Autobot identity should have rejected. Killing became necessary evil. Assassination became strategic elimination. His past as murderer became experience that made him effective protector. The IDW comics explored this most thoroughly. Didnt operated in spaces between official Autobot operations and outright Black Ops, sometimes working with Prowl's networks, sometimes acting independently, always maintaining enough distance that when his methods proved controversial, Optimus could claim ignorance. He was useful precisely because he existed in moral gray zone. Autobot when convenient, Decepticon when necessary, something neither when situations required it. His relationship with other Autobots reflected this ambiguity. Some, like Rodimus, valued his skills despite discomfort with his past. Others, like Ultra Magnus, never fully trusted him. Recognizing that someone who switched sides once might switch again, that Autobot insignia didn't erase years of Decepticon conditioning. Didnt himself seemed uncertain which side he truly belonged to. Autobot by choice, Decepticon by nature, forever caught between identities, and never fully comfortable in either. Redemption or relapse. Didnt's ongoing struggle with his identity raises uncomfortable question. Can someone who committed Decepticon-level atrocities ever truly become Autobot? Does accepting him into their ranks make Autobots more inclusive and forgiving? Or does it compromise their moral standards by welcoming someone whose past includes crimes they claim to oppose? The answer matters, because Didnt represents pathway that other Decepticons might follow. If he can transition from assassin to Autobot, theoretically, any Decepticon could, which either suggests that Autobot-Decepticon divide is less fundamental than portrayed, or that Autobots have relaxed standards so thoroughly that factional identity has lost meaning. Neither conclusion flatters Autobot moral superiority. Didnt's philosophy, his meditation, his swordsmanship, his aesthetic of enlightened warrior functions as armor against self-examination. As long as he performs spirituality, he doesn't have to confront whether he's actually changed or merely rebranded. The Zen koans and martial arts forms create impression of transformation without requiring actual ethical evolution. He's still killer. He's just killer with prettier justifications. Yet there's tragedy in Didnt's position too. He genuinely wants to be better, to atone for past, to prove that change is possible. His struggle with identity isn't performance, but authentic crisis. Can someone defined by violence become defined by something else? Is redemption real, or just narrative? We tell ourselves to live with who we've been. Didnt doesn't know, and his uncertainty infects everyone around him, forcing Autobots to question whether they're offering genuine second chance or just weaponizing guilt to create useful asset. Didnt proves that you can change sides without changing nature. 4 Autobots, 4 different expressions of moral ambiguity. Prowl, who weaponized ethics into tactical advantage. Ultra Magnus, who broke every law he swore to uphold. Optimus Prime, who authorized atrocities while preaching virtue. And Didnt, who changed uniforms but not nature. These characters force us to confront uncomfortable truth. The Autobot-Decepticon conflict was never as morally clear as franchise marketing suggested. Both sides committed atrocities. Both rationalized cruelty as necessity. Both transformed their warriors into killers while maintaining pretense of moral superiority. The difference wasn't that Autobots were good and Decepticons were evil. The difference was that Autobots were better at public relations, at maintaining heroic narrative, even when actions contradicted it. Understanding these morally gray Autobots doesn't diminish the franchise, it enriches it. Complex characters are more compelling than cardboard heroes. Moral ambiguity is more interesting than simple virtue. Wars where both sides compromise their principles to survive are more realistic than conflicts where good triumphs through moral purity alone. These 4 Autobots and others who operated in similar gray zones made victory possible, not through heroism as traditionally defined, but through willingness to do what victory required, regardless of cost to their souls. They were weapons as surely as any fusion cannon or energon sword, except these weapons consumed their wielders from inside, eroding principles even as they protected them. The question isn't whether these Autobots were heroes or villains, categories too simplistic for beings who spent millions of years in existential conflict. The question is whether we can accept that heroism might sometimes look like villainy, that protecting innocent life sometimes requires taking it, that the warriors we celebrate might be the ones we'd condemn if we examined their methods too closely. Transformers at its best explores these moral complexities, acknowledges that war corrupts everyone it touches, recognizes that victory's price is often paid in principles sacrificed rather than lives lost. Prowl, Ultra Magnus, Optimus Prime, and Didnt embody this reality. They're heroes, not despite their moral grayness, but because of it. Because they accepted burdens that simpler heroes refused. because they made compromises that preserved others' ability to remain pure. Heroism isn't always clean. Sometimes it's just doing what others won't, and living with the consequences they'll never know.